It was 2:13 a.m. when the old baby monitor crackled to life, 5 years after her son had died. And what she heard? "Mommy, come get me." Jessica Malone was a 32-year-old single mother living in the quiet, wooded suburb of Pinedale, Oregon, a place known more for its foggy hiking trails and small-town charm than for anything you'd see on the news. Pinedale wasn't the kind of town where people locked their doors. Jessica had lived there her whole life, and she was raising her son, Aiden, in the very house her parents left her when they passed. Aiden Malone was 5 years old, the kind of kid neighbors still talk about like a warm breeze. He had bright green eyes, a gap in his front teeth, and a laugh that could carry through the trees. He was born prematurely, and for the first few months of his life, Jessica was glued to a hospital bassinet, reading bedtime stories through plastic tubing and beeping machines. When Aiden finally came home, he was healthy enough, but Jessica remained hypervigilant. The baby monitor, an old analog model passed down by her cousin, stayed on every night, even long after most moms would have packed it away. She said it gave her peace of mind. Jessica worked as a nurse at a small clinic on the edge of town, alternating between 12-hour shifts and after-school pickup. Most of her free time was spent with Aiden, nature walks, bedtime stories, Legos scattered across the floor. The house was modest, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, but it was filled with love, and that was enough. And then came the night everything changed. On September 18, 2019, Aiden vanished. Jessica had tucked him in around 8:30 p.m. They had read "Goodnight Moon," his favorite. She kissed his forehead, turned on the nightlight shaped like a glowing turtle, and left the door ajar, just like always. The monitor was set to channel A and sat on her nightstand, as it had for 5 years. At 3:12 a.m., she woke up to silence, not static, not white noise, just nothing. When she got up to check the monitor, the green light was dead. She felt her chest tighten. She walked quietly to Aiden's room, heart pounding, already knowing something was wrong. His bed was empty. No window was open. No doors were forced. No glass broken. There were no footprints, no signs of a struggle, and no sounds caught by the monitor, which had gone completely dark sometime in the middle of the night. The police found no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints other than family, and no trace of Aiden in the surrounding woods or neighborhood. Jessica was questioned, as any parent would be. She cooperated fully, took a lie detector test, gave access to all her texts, phone records, even her private journals. Nothing ever suggested she had anything to do with Aiden's disappearance. Friends described her as overprotective, if anything. A mother who would never let her son wander off. Flyers went up. Search dogs combed through 15 miles of forest. Drones scanned tree canopies. Local news ran the story for 3 straight weeks. But there were no ransom calls. No witnesses. No video footage. No evidence. It was as if Aiden had simply evaporated. Months passed. Then years. Eventually, the public moved on. The case remained open but cold. Jessica kept Aiden's room untouched. The turtle nightlight still plugged in, a pile of tiny socks still folded in the drawer. She kept the old baby monitor on her nightstand, long since replaced by modern tech, but she couldn't let go of it. She said it was like keeping a porch light on, just in case. And then, 5 years later, on the night of August 2, 2024, at exactly 2:13 a.m., that baby monitor turned itself back on. And a voice came through. It was small. Fragile. Like a whisper pulled through static. "Mommy, come get me." In the months before Aiden's disappearance, Jessica had noticed small, almost dismissible things that wouldn't raise alarm on their own, but in hindsight felt like shadows creeping into the edges of their lives. It started with toys being moved. Jessica would tidy up Aiden's room before bed, cars lined up in neat rows, Legos back in their bins. But sometimes in the morning, she'd find a toy in the hallway, or a book opened on the living room couch. She chalked it up to memory lapses. Maybe she left them there. Maybe Aiden had gotten up before her. Then came the footprints. One morning, during a light snow in late January, Jessica found what looked like a single set of footprints around the side of the house, just below Aiden's bedroom window. The strange thing was, there was only one set. They started at the tree line and ended below the window. No return path. No smudges from climbing. Just 10 prints in the snow, leading to the house, and vanishing. She took a photo and called the police. They came, took a report, but found nothing. Could be a deer trail, one officer said. Sometimes they look like boots if the snow melts a little. Jessica wasn't convinced. The prints had tread patterns. She showed them the photo again. Still, there was no follow-up. A few weeks later, Aiden started waking up with nightmares. He called them the knocking dreams. Jessica asked what he meant, and he said, "A man knocks on my window, but he doesn't have hands." Jessica assumed it was just a child's bad dream. She checked the window, locked. But the comment stuck with her. She started making rounds at night, checking the locks 3 times, walking the perimeter of the house with a flashlight. She even installed a motion sensor light near the back window. But it never tripped. Still, Aiden's dreams got worse. He began to sleepwalk. Jessica would wake up to find him standing at the top of the stairs, staring blankly. Once, she found him in the laundry room holding a pair of her old slippers. When she asked him what he was doing, he simply said, "He wanted me to find these." Jessica took him to a child therapist in Pinedale. They wrote it off as anxiety and recommended reducing screen time and introducing a bedtime routine. Jessica was already doing both. The final straw came 2 weeks before the disappearance. Jessica had fallen asleep during one of her overnight shifts. The clinic had been slow that night, and she dozed off in the break room around 3 a.m. She woke up to a missed call on her cell, from her landline. No voicemail. Just one ring, then silence. Panicked, she called her neighbor to check in on Aiden. He was asleep, unharmed. But when Jessica got home the next morning, she found the landline phone, an old cordless model, lying off the hook on the kitchen floor. The batteries were dead. 2 days later, she found the baby monitor channel changed. She never changed it. It had always been on channel A. That night, when she went to bed, it was faint static, channel B. Confused, she adjusted it back, checked the receiver in Aiden's room. Everything looked fine. But she felt something was watching her. The next night, Aiden disappeared. And for years, it was as though he'd been swallowed whole by the silence. Until now. When Jessica heard the voice. "Mommy, come get me!" She froze. The monitor was glowing faint green, a color she hadn't seen in 5 years. It was an old analog model, no recording, no Wi-Fi. The sound was live. She didn't sleep that night. She sat there, holding the monitor to her ear like it was a sacred artifact. At 2:13 a.m. the next night, the voice returned. This time, the message was slightly different. "I'm still here." She recorded it on her phone and took it to the police. They dismissed it as a malfunction, old electronics, cross signals, even radio interference. One detective asked if she'd considered therapy. Jessica left in tears. But she knew what she had heard. So she took matters into her own hands. She started staying up all night, waiting for the voice to return. It became a ritual. 2:13 a.m., every night for a week. Always the same static, always the same whisper. "Come get me!" By the second week of August 2024, Jessica had done what the authorities hadn't. She began investigating her son's disappearance, starting with the baby monitor itself. She posted a clip of the audio to a private Reddit thread dedicated to paranormal technology interference, hoping someone might help her identify the source. She didn't use her real name, just called herself JM, and explained the situation in vague terms. The post didn't go viral, but one user replied, and that changed everything. The commenter claimed to be a retired RF technician named Mark Weller. He said the baby monitor appeared to be receiving on a frequency that should have been inactive for years, an old analog band phased out after the FCC's spectrum reallocation. "The signal you're receiving," he wrote, "shouldn't even exist anymore. Jessica sent him the make and model of the monitor. He confirmed, no internet, no pairing function, no recording capability. It was purely line-of-sight analog transmission. But if someone was somehow broadcasting on that band again, they'd have to be close. Very close. Jessica took that to mean whoever was sending the voice. It wasn't a ghost, it wasn't a memory, it was someone alive. So she did something most people would never consider. She bought 5 more identical baby monitors on eBay, tuned them to different channels, and placed them all around her house, living room, kitchen, basement, even the crawl space under Aiden's old bedroom. Then she waited. And on August 18, 2024, one of them picked up a sound. This time, it wasn't Aiden's voice. It was breathing. A low, shallow inhale. Then a long exhale. Over and over. It lasted 44 seconds. She took the recording to the police again. This time, a younger officer named Riley Banks took her seriously. He was new to the department, hadn't been around during the original investigation. Riley agreed to come out and listen himself. They waited until 2:13 a.m. The monitors stayed quiet that night. But Riley promised to review the original case file. When he did, he noticed something strange. In the list of neighbors interviewed back in 2019, a man named Curtis Lang had been marked unavailable. There was no interview transcript. No follow-up. Jessica didn't recognize the name. Riley dug deeper. Curtis Lang had lived in a converted hunting cabin just over a mile from Jessica's property, down a winding access road behind the tree-line. He was a former sound engineer who'd worked in shortwave and ham radio broadcasting back in the 90s. No criminal record. Lived alone. Moved away just 3 months after Aiden's disappearance. Jessica's heart dropped. The one set of footprints in the snow. The knocking dreams. The landline call from inside the house. The changed monitor channel. Every clue pointed to someone with access to radio frequencies, someone who knew how to stay invisible, and someone who knew how to get inside her home. The Pinedale police reopened the case, officially. Officer Riley obtained a search warrant for the cabin, which had sat empty for years, but was still owned by Lang. What they found inside was chilling. Beneath the floorboards of the bedroom closet, they discovered a concealed trapdoor leading to a crawl space. Low ceiling, dirt floor, soundproofed with old insulation foam and fiberglass panels. In one corner sat a dusty folding chair, a rusted thermos, and a set of batteries. Nearby, half buried in dust, was an old two-way analog transmitter. Same frequency range as Jessica's monitor. Even more disturbing, pinned to one of the walls was a Polaroid photo, aged and curled, of a child with green eyes sitting in what appeared to be a makeshift playroom. The timestamp on the photo read, September 22, 2019, 4 days after Aiden vanished. The photo was faded, and the child's face partially turned, but to Jessica, there was no doubt. It was her son. CSI swept the cabin. DNA samples were collected from the crawl space and matched to Aiden. No body was found. But what they did find was enough to reclassify the case from missing person to abduction and unlawful imprisonment. Curtis Lang was now the prime suspect. Except he was gone. He'd left no forwarding address, no known relatives, and his last known place of employment, a ham radio supply store in Idaho, reported he hadn't been seen in over 4 years. The FBI was brought in. A nationwide BOLO was issued. But the deeper they dug into Lang's past, the more disturbing it became. He'd once worked at a sound studio specializing in isolation acoustics, and reportedly lived off-grid in multiple towns across the Pacific Northwest. No friends. No digital footprint. But plenty of technical skill. The theory became chillingly clear. Curtis Lang had been watching Jessica. He knew how to stay hidden. He lured Aiden out, possibly while sleepwalking, then kept him alive, at least for some time. Broadcasting his voice, even now, meant only one thing. He might still be doing it. Somewhere. As the investigation into Curtis Lang deepened, the FBI began reconstructing a timeline of his movements. But they hit dead end after dead end. No financial activity. No cell phone use. No known associates. Until Jessica remembered something small, seemingly insignificant. 2 years after Aiden disappeared, in 2021, she had received a package. No return address. It had come during a week when she was moving some of Aiden's things into storage. Inside was a plastic turtle night light, identical to the one in Aiden's room. But it wasn't his. It was a new one, newer model, brighter glow. Still in the box. She'd assumed a friend had sent it anonymously. But now, that didn't seem so harmless. The package had been postmarked from a small town in northern Washington, Briar Glen. Population 1,200. Off the grid. Remote. The kind of place you could disappear in. Jessica told the FBI, and they issued a quiet canvass. 2 weeks later, they got a hit. A postal worker in Briar Glen confirmed that someone matching Lang's description, tall, thin, wiry gray hair, wore gloves even in summer, had a P.O. box there for a short time in 2021. He stopped collecting mail after a few months. Never left a forwarding address. But the postal worker remembered one strange thing. He asked if there were any restrictions on sending battery-operated electronics. That same week, a Forest Service worker outside of Briar Glen found what looked like an old amateur radio antenna deep in the trees, mounted crudely between two pines, with coaxial cable running underground. The wires led to a sealed storm shelter embedded into a hillside. No property record. No signs of ownership. When FBI agents pried it open, they found what looked like a sound lab. Inside were dusty reel-to-reel machines, magnetic tape, radio receivers, and speakers bolted into the walls. A journal sat on a metal table near the entrance. Inside were pages and pages of handwritten notes. Times, frequencies, phrases, and dates. All of them correlated to Jessica's baby monitor recordings. Every 2:13 a.m. broadcast was listed. On the final page, scrawled in trembling handwriting, were the words, "She's still listening. He's still calling." There were no signs of recent habitation. But another clue was buried in the back of the shelter, a narrow hatch, sealed from the outside. Behind it, agents found a second chamber, this one filled with child-sized furniture, old toys, a cot, and dozens of drawings pinned to the walls. Crayon sketches, stick figures, trees, a turtle, a mother, a boy holding her hand. DNA testing later confirmed what Jessica already knew. The space had once held Aiden. The emotional breakthrough for investigators, and Jessica, was that Aiden had likely been alive for years after his disappearance. Lang hadn't just taken him and run. He had kept him, hidden him, taught him things, maybe even convinced him that Jessica had stopped looking. And yet, Aiden had found a way to call out. Not physically. Not through the front door. But through the only thing his mother had never turned off. The baby monitor. He'd used Lang's transmitter. Maybe without permission. Maybe in secret. But he'd found a way. And that meant he might still be out there. Alive. And maybe, still trying to reach her. The FBI launched a multi-state search, shifting focus from recovery to rescue. Lang became one of the most wanted men in the Pacific Northwest, though no formal charges were made public at first. Psychological profilers described him as a high-functioning isolationist with compulsive surveillance behaviors, obsessed with non-digital auditory communication. To the FBI, this wasn't just an abduction. It was a long-term captivity experiment. And the question that haunted everyone was this: had Aiden finally escaped? Or had he been let go? The search for Aiden Malone shifted into overdrive. Armed with proof of his presence in the underground shelter, FBI teams began combing every surrounding square mile of forest near Briar Glen, fanning out from the hidden bunker with heat-sensing drones, K-9 units, and off-grid tracking teams. Missing person databases were cross-checked with sightings of unidentified children across Washington, Idaho, and Oregon. The public wasn't told the full details, not yet, but for those close to the case, there was hope. And then, 6 weeks after the discovery of the bunker, a breakthrough came. On the morning of October 1, 2024, a man walking his dog along the banks of Lake Marin, a secluded lake 60 miles from Briar Glen, found a disoriented teenage boy wrapped in a thermal blanket near a boathouse. He was barefoot, underweight, and nonverbal, staring out at the water with wide, hollow eyes. The man called 911. Within hours, agents and medics arrived. When they asked the boy his name, he didn't answer. But when one of the EMTs said, "It's okay, we're here to help," the boy whispered, "Tell my mom. I'm sorry I couldn't get back sooner." DNA confirmed what Jessica already knew the moment she saw him. It was Aiden, now 10 years old. Barely recognizable, but alive. He was taken into protective custody and spent the next several weeks in a children's recovery facility under 24-hour medical and psychological care. He didn't speak for the first few days. He flinched at loud sounds. He had a phobia of light bulbs, later attributed to the isolation and underground confinement. But slowly, bit by bit, he opened up. And what he revealed was more disturbing than anyone had imagined. He told doctors about Mr. Lang, a man who had found him in the woods, and told him his mom had died. That no one was coming. That the world outside was sick, and only the bunker was safe. For years he'd lived on canned food and filtered water. Was taught to stay quiet. Punished if he made noise. He had books. Drawing supplies. An old TV that only played static. But one thing had kept him going. A baby monitor. Hidden behind a wall panel, he said, was a small green light. It didn't always turn on. But sometimes, just sometimes, it would glow. And when it did, he would whisper into it. He didn't know if she could hear. But he hoped. In early 2024, Lang had gotten sick. A cough he couldn't stop. Eventually, he stopped coming to the bunker. Aiden waited. After days of silence, he left. He climbed out through the forest. Found a road. Then the boathouse. That's where he stayed waiting. For anyone. Or for her. And someone came. Jessica was reunited with Aiden under FBI supervision in mid-October. Their first meeting was quiet. No sobbing. No hugs. Just a moment, long and unbroken, where their eyes met, and Aiden reached out, trembling, to touch her cheek. As if to confirm she was real. After 5 years. She was. Meanwhile, the manhunt for Curtis Lang continued. His body was never found, but one set of decomposed human remains was discovered in a remote creek near the Briar Glen site. Dental records were inconclusive. No ID was recovered. But many believe Lang died out there, either from illness, exposure, or self-inflicted means. The FBI has never officially confirmed that. Because as of now, Curtis Lang remains listed as a fugitive. The bunker was destroyed. The shelter dismantled. And the baby monitor, the one Jessica had kept by her bedside for 5 long years, now sits in a secure evidence vault in Portland, marked with a simple tag. Malone case, voice transmission source, do not discard. Jessica and Aiden have since relocated to an undisclosed town under a new name. She no longer gives interviews. Her home is quiet. No media. No guests. But there's one story local children whisper about on rainy nights. They say sometimes if you drive past the edge of the old Malone property at exactly 2:13 a.m., you can hear a voice, crackling through the trees, soft, distant, and full of longing. "Mommy, come get me!"